What's good, guys? Today I'm working on my MS3. Did a lot of work with Radiator. Had a little crack in the side, so I'm working to remove it and repair it myself. I could replace it, but it's about $300, so I decided it's kind of worth a shot to try to look into fixing this radiator itself. Very small crack on the plastic shroud on the side. That'll be a separate video on how to fix the crack. I'm not making a video on how to remove the radiator on this car only because it's super weird to do. It's not really the same as the other MLs. The 63 has some other coolers, like I believe one's a trans cooler, one's a power steering cooler. So there's a lot more going on. It's a little bit more difficult to remove. So I myself kind of needed to figure out how to do it before I would even explain to anyone else. So if I ever do in the future, I'll make a video on it. But for now, I can't. However, today's video is about removing the bumper. So to get better access to the radiators and all that, and kind of have less of a concern about getting in the way of the car itself and damaging the bumper, I'm going to remove it completely. I'm also going to be doing some headlight work later this week, so it kind of all makes sense. I'm sure if you guys are going to be watching my future video on how to take apart these headlights and paint internals and replace components and all that, you'll need to watch this video as well to remove the bumper. So the 63 might be a little bit different than the 350, 320, or not the 350, 500, all those cars, or 550. But the general idea is very similar. I've already removed, one fender lining over here, so it's all exposed over here. It is much easier to remove it completely than to just kind of maneuver around it, so I do recommend that. It'll probably be easier to take your wheels off. Now, my car is on jack stands right now, so I could, in fact, do that, and I probably will. But you don't need to really. There's a lot of travel in the suspension, so it kind of drops down a good amount. So I'll be showing you guys how to do it on the other side. Also, just want to point out a good way to keep yourself organized when you're taking a lot of stuff apart in your car. Make us a little diagram. Put the bolts, where they where respectively on your car. Especially when I'm doing something as big as this. I'm doing a lot of work on this car this week, so you guys are going to see a ton of videos on the MS53 and the 156. Kind of probably going to clean it up a little bit, but yeah, it's really a good idea to kind of have things in order and organized, so keep that in mind. These are all of the bolts I got from the driver's side fender liner. This Allen key right here, you guys may not have because only the 63s have it to secure this kind of wide body piece on there, so don't worry about that one. So on the 164 platform, almost every bolt or screw I've come across so far has been a 10mm, so kind of makes things easier. Alright, it's coming into the fender lining over here. There's the upper control arm, which I'll be working on later this week as well. But as you can see, there are two 10mm screws up there, and then one 10mm plastic nut right there. You gotta remove all three of those. And then if you have a 63, I believe that's a T20 right there. I gotta remove that. There are some plastic clips where you can either use a flathead screwdriver or simply pull them with your fingers. They may be seized up after some time, so if I were you, I'd just put some silicone blaster on there. There's also a plastic nut, 10mm down there, and then two more of those plastic kind of rivets down there. Once you remove those, we're at the bottom of the car now. There are going to be a few 10mm screws you need to take out. I've already taken those out because I've already removed my under tray from the car completely. As you can tell, there's a lot going on. So be sure to take all those out, and you will not need to take out, if you have a 63 or 550, you will not need to remove those torque screws right there, as they're a part of the bumper, just kind of holding in this front plastic splitter, or whatever you want to call that piece there. They're holding that in place, so those do not need to be removed. But once you remove all of those screws with the fender liner, you basically just got to tug it in a little bit, and it'll just kind of pop right off. The main thing for removing it is getting the around where the plastic nuts are, or removing the fender liner off of those studs completely so they can kind of move freely. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, once those are off, it'll be much easier to take the bumper off. And if you do not already have your under paneling off, you want to remove all of the 10mm screws. Just kind of get more accessibility to the bottom end over here of the bumper that kind of go along the front end of that panel. Honestly, it might be easier just to remove the entire thing, but that's just my 2 cents. Now we're going to move on to the actual removal of the bumper. While most of our work is going to be in the kind of fender liner area itself, there are 2 screws you want to remove, one on each side. I've already removed this one over here. Again, 10mm, super long. Here's what it looks like. Pretty long, as you can see, and that's what comes out of these two holes. Honestly, probably a good idea to leave these kind of somewhat in until the very end, as if we're working in the corners over here at the fender liner, it may be easier to kind of have those holding the kind of top in place. There are quite a few wires we'll need to disconnect, so we don't want to put any stress on those wires at all. So stuff like the fog lights, the parking sensors, and all that kind of stuff. Alright, so I've got the wheel off. You can see the beautiful suspension components and all that. There's the washer fluid reservoir right there. If we look to where the bumper meets the actual fender, there is a metal clip right there. Kind of a thick metal clip, as you can see right there in the middle of the screen. And there's one T20 right there, kind of holding the clip in place. So what we have to do is remove that T20 right there, and then pull this entire metal clip off of the car. It may require a little bit more effort than you think. It is pretty stiffly on there. However, it is very possible, so just keep that in mind. Use some silicone spray, just kind of lubricate things up a little bit. It'll be a lot easier if you do so. Alright, so with plenty of silicone spray, I was able to get that clip off very easily. And as you can see now, the bumper just kind of, you can see a gap there. It's no longer attached there. However, there's still quite a bit of stuff we need to remove in order to fully take this bumper off. The next thing we'll have to do is, as you can see, there's a little plastic gear there that kind of tightens the hold on the bumper itself. So what we have to do is take a 10mm open-ended wrench. I'm actually using a ratchet wrench to make this a little bit easier because a socket will not fit in there. And loosen it quite a bit to the point where the bumper can just kind of slide off. As you can see, that gear kind of moves with it. So that is fairly easy to do. Just, again, silicone spray, I cannot stress enough, is your best friend with this kind of job. Alright, so both sides are pretty loose, as you can see. All of the connections have all been undone. It's just kind of hanging in there. One thing we have left to do, I almost forgot, is to remove these little pegs from the grill. They're kind of the same little clips you see on the inner fender liner. You might want to use a flathead, or else you're going to chip your fingers. So I'm going to do that real quick. Get these guys out of there, and then we should be good to go. Alright, so with enough wiggling, I was able to get the bumper off. There are only two connections. I've taken off one already. Very simple. You just kind of lift up on this clip over here, and the entire thing will come apart. I believe the exact same connector is over here. And so we just want to lift up on this piece over here, and then the entire thing can pull apart like that. And now the bumper is free to move. It is pretty heavy, massive SUV bumper, so keep that in mind. You don't want to damage the bottom at all, so I'm having it resting kind of just softly on the ground, so nothing's going to happen to it. Now I can get it out of the way, and we can continue with other work on the car.